March Madness is all about the upsets, cause who doesn't love it when David slays Goliath, or when the little engine that could chugs its way to the Final Four. I'm talking about the real upsets, when Yale beats Baylor, or when Florida Gulf Coast introduces Lob City to the Sweet 16. I called both of them, and I've got the receipts to prove it. But the truth about upsets is simple. An upset is only an upset to everyone else. The players at any unknown D1 school who will win a tournament game believe they will win long before they actually play it. They just have to turn the rest of us into believers. So regardless of how good the top teams are this year, I promise you that upsets are going to happen. In fact, they are inevitable. And here is the real reason why. Lesson 1. Small conference teams are way better than we give them credit for. And if you watch random games like Syracuse versus Colgate in non-conference, you will find that out. And no, I am not talking about the toothpaste. Syracuse and Colgate are both private colleges in New York State that play D1 basketball. But one is in the ACC, and the other, well, you probably couldn't tell me their mascot, which for the record is the Red Raiders. Every small D1 conference has at least one or two teams that are legit. But these likely upset teams have one problem. They have to win their conference tournament just to get on the bracket in the first place. Which brings me to lesson 2. We have a Power 5 problem, where the assumption is that the most talented players will go to the same teams every year in recruiting. Media coverage shows it, and basketball recruits believe it. But in 2022, the St. Peter's Peacocks of the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference made the Elite Eight. And it is unlikely that any of their players were even considered as recruits by Kentucky, who they beat in the first round. So the real question the tournament is posing is, how does a team of Kentucky rejects go on to beat them in a game that matters? And the answer is simple. They overlooked them. Because big name programs like Kentucky tend to recruit a specific type of player. He's probably ranked in the top 100 by all of the major ranking services and has prototypical NBA size to match. But that strategy makes it impossible for them to ever find the next Damian Lillard, Ja Morant, or Fred VanVleet for that matter. You can't find the next diamond in the rough if you only shop for diamonds at K Jewelers. See what I did there? K, Kentucky. Anyway, the tourney has been showing us that just because you're overlooked by teams like Kentucky and the SEC doesn't necessarily mean you cannot play at that level. It could be their size, or what camps they went to, or more importantly, the ones they did not go to. But when St. Peter's played Kentucky, among their top 5 scorers were 3 state champions and another player who was the FIBA Under-18 Africa champion. These were players who knew how to win basketball games, and their victory was only a shock to the people who didn't already know their names. And speaking of names, my final lesson is that a lot of them have changed teams lately, thanks to the transfer portal. Cause any player who is unhappy at a Power 5 program can now simply transfer. And those transfer players, the unhappy ones, they end up playing for other teams in the tournament, like Southeastern Missouri, better known as SEMO. They have 9 transfer players on their roster. For those keeping score, that's more than half the team. About half the players from high-level D1 could be replaced by those from smaller teams, and we wouldn't notice a difference. You might notice if Brandon Miller is not playing for Alabama, but I highly doubt you're going to miss whoever the 9th man is in their rotation. As a recruit, you have to find your best fit school, because big name programs aren't the only place you can accomplish big things. When a coach reaches out, you have no way of knowing if they're the next Lehigh University, the next Florida Gulf Coast University, or even the next St. Peter's University. And remember, it isn't really an upset when you win. Because the only reason the coach is recruiting you is because you've already proven that you are a winner. You just have to turn the rest of us into believers. And trust me, I'll be watching when you do.